Hi there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Today I am working on potting up some amaryllis and a few paperwhites. What started this project was I saw these pots at Walmart actually, and I thought they would be really cute planted up with a single amaryllis and used as a hostess gift. So I thought they're really pretty, they're kind of wintry, it's almost like a snowflake on this design here. And I think it would be just beautiful to hold an amaryllis as a gift. And I have this pot here that I like to pot up with amaryllis every year. So I'm gonna put a few in here. So amaryllis normally would bloom in the summer. They're a more tropical environment type plant, but in a lot of places, people like to force them to bloom in winter, especially around Christmas. And so that's what my plan is for this today. So usually from planting until bloom is about 6 to 8 weeks for most varieties of amaryllis. Some will take around 10 weeks, and it just kind of depends on their conditions, how warm it is, you know, how much moisture they have, how big the bulb is, and whether they've already started to sprout or not. Amaryllis give you really high impact with big, huge, beautiful blooms. And you can often find them in shades of red, which is very kind of traditional. Sometimes they'll be striated. I don't have an example right here, but sometimes you can get them in pinks and in whites. This one is actually a white with a green throat. Very pretty. So I went out today and I picked up 4 new amaryllis bulbs, and then I have a couple that I have grown over the years and I had just pulled out of the soil late summer, and they've just been sitting to kind of have some dormant time down in my basement, and I'd actually kind of forgotten about them until I was thinking about doing this, and I can see that they're starting to sprout, so good timing, they're ready to go. I also have some paperwhites just because I thought it might be just something nice and different. I don't grow paperwhites very often, and I haven't grown them in years. The smell that the flower exudes is very strong and perfumey, and it actually really bothers my allergies to have it in the house. But some people absolutely love it. So I thought that this might be a nice one to package up as a hostess gift for someone who won't mind that smell. It would enjoy the flowers and actually enjoy the scent. They will bloom also in about 6 to 8 weeks. And they need pretty similar conditions to the amaryllis. So I think we're good to go with these. If I remember correctly, these amaryllis, I believe they were variegated. I think one's variegated and one is kind of a orangey red color. I could be wrong. For the first time ever, my amaryllis actually put off babies this summer. So when I pulled them out of the soil, they had all these little babies attached. So it was kind of neat to have these little babies off of them. And like I said, I just took them, I had grown them, just like I'm gonna show you how to grow these here. And then I just set them outside over the summer to let the leaves go through their cycle of collecting up sunshine and collecting nutrients through the roots. And then the leaves will start to yellow off. And even if they don't, by the end of summer, you need to bring them in if you live in a cold climate where it's going to freeze, because they don't want that. And I just dug them out. I actually have them in this pot here. I dug them out. You don't have to dig them up, but I like to I wanted to kind of dig them out, see what was going on. And you can just take them. I just threw them in this tray here. I cut off any leaves that were yellowed and any large roots. You can see I have the roots pretty much cut back. And I just set them down in the dark in my basement where it was a bit cooler. And they've just been sitting there for several months now until they've now started to sprout. So they're very easy to take care of. That's how your bulbs would look if you were just continually planting and using your own bulbs. You might also find them packaged like this. So this is just from the local garden center here. I picked these up this morning. This one is called Prancer. And so it could be bagged slightly different, but it's just kind of loose. Usually they'll have some sort of a tag, or if it's in a bulk bin of just a bunch of bulbs, you might be able to just pick up a paper with some information on it or a card. And that should have the information you need for how to plant it. When you're buying them, you want to kind of give them a feel. They should be fairly firm. You shouldn't be able to squish them. And I like to look, because a lot of times they'll be starting to sprout already. And I picked through, because some of them, because especially when they're in these packages like this, they're looking for the light. Amaryllis are very phototropic, so they're going to look for the light. So if it's laying on its side, it's going to go up. And if the sun is over this way, it's going to go this way. If it's over this way, it's going to go this way. And they'll grow really crazy. So I tried to find some that had shorter stems that hadn't gotten too committed in a crazy direction, and that hopefully were a little bit straighter. And then you might also find them in a box like this. So this is a kit. This one is from Walmart. It was actually, even though it's a kit, about half the price of my local garden center, but I had to dig through the boxes, open them up, because most of them were mushy. This hasn't started to sprout yet, so it's probably going to take just a little bit more time to get going than the others. It does have a little tiny baby just starting on it though, which I don't know if I've ever seen that before when I've purchased a bulb. But otherwise, it's in fairly much the same condition as the one from my local garden center. It did come with this small plastic pot, the box that has instructions on it. Get that out of my way. And there's usually some sort of peat moss or potting mix with it. Sometimes these pots will come with a base. This one doesn't, so you would still need some sort of base for it or something to put it in, but I'm not going to use this for this project. So this white one is just called white. So it possibly has more of a variety name to it, but being that it's just from Walmart, maybe they're not labeled quite that way. So I can use this soil. I'll just mix it in with what I already have mixed up for today, and it'll just be in addition to that. So that's kind of the different ways that you'll find your bulbs. You'll see this one here that came from the garden center has more roots on it. Now these roots aren't going to help it. These are old roots. They're dried out. See, they just peel off. So you can leave them alone, or I actually like to just snip them off, just because I don't want to encourage any mold or anything in them. This one I don't think, oh, it had a little bit of roots on it too, so I'll trim those off before I get it planted. It does have one, I don't know if you can see in there, there is one fresh new root starting to grow, actually two. So they're softer, they're fleshier, they're not as dried out. These are actually good roots, these couple of roots here. So you could leave those on and they should develop when you plant it. These hard dried out ones, not so much. So again, I'll just be kind of cutting them off. Now, I don't think you have to cut them off, but I just think the less extra kind of dried matter down in there, the less chance of having any mold, disease, rot kind of things happen. Now, the last variety that I got, that I picked up at the garden center is called Vixen, and I actually was looking for white amaryllis, or like the white with just a little bit of color, but I saw this one with this deep, dark, kind of moody red color, and I had to have it. And this one was sprouting a bit more than the others, so I'm just going to show you. So you see the sprout was starting to turn a bit, but because it hasn't turned too much, I think it'll still straighten out. Because when you're growing your amaryllis, if you have one really strong light source, it's good to just give them a little turn every day anyways to kind of keep their growth even. So before I get too far into this project and too many plants opened up and bulbs sitting around here, I'm going to just write out my tags so that I don't mix them up, because I can just tuck these way down in the pot so they're not really visible, but then whether it's received as a gift or it's something that I have at my house, I'll know the varieties when I go to dig them up, or the person who received them goes to dig them up. So this red one I said was Vixen. And I had two Prancer. And I think I have the box for these, because for some reason I didn't have the labels with them. So I'm gonna go see if I have the label for the ones that I had saved and get them labeled properly as well. I love these labels like this with the little hole in them, and they're a sturdier label because you can take them. I use them for all of my like bulbs and things that corms that need to get stored out of soil, and I use them to label those because I can put it right through the stems of dahlias or cannas, or tie it to bags of gladiolus and whatnot, or even with the amaryllis I could poke it through or just store it in the container with them. And because they're a sturdier tag, they're just they just last that much longer. Okay, I'm gonna go find if I have the variety names for these, and then we'll come back and get these put together. Okay, so I found the, I just had cut the sides off the boxes that these came in, and I have 3, but I only have 2 bulbs, and I do think I've forgotten, because I dug these up months ago, but one was kind of mushy and rotten for some reason. I don't take very good care of them when they sit outside. I kind of forget about them outside. It could be Red Lion, which is kind of your classic. I could have a Red Lion. Or a Minerva, which is a red with a white throat. Or hopefully one of them is Apple Blossom, because it's a pink with a white throat, which is really pretty, though it doesn't really go with my other colors here. It would be nice if I had that. So I'm gonna try and, I'll keep these, and I'm gonna pay attention to what blooms in my bowl, and then I will know what I have here. Or I might just use them in these. We'll see, because I'm not sure. These might be too big for the pots that I bought. Some of these are really big, whereas mine are just a little bit smaller. So we'll see where I wind up using them. But I think I have labels for everything now except the Paperwhite. So I think they'd be really pretty in this little tray here. And even though it won't be quite the planting depth that they normally require for this temporary display, that'll be fine. So I will save those to do with this. I'm just gonna set them to the side. Deal with those later. Now for these pots here, hopefully you can see them well. They have no drainage in them. So we don't want to just plant right directly in them, because then it can be very difficult to get the watering right. So I had these little pots, and they fit right inside, and there's actually just the tiniest little gap, like maybe ½ centimeter or so. What's that, like, I don't know, 1/4 inch between the bottom of this pot and the bottom of the other pot, and so that'll allow some water to drain through if it doesn't quite drip. But then these can be pulled out, watered, and put back in, and then if there's still some dripping, the roots aren't going to be totally sitting in that water. So I think that'll be a good plan as long as my bulbs fit. These are a little bit small, but I think we can make them work for this project. So that's going to be the first test, is which bulbs fit in these little pots. Now with amaryllis, they actually don't want to be buried completely. So you might be thinking, man, you're crazy if you're going to plant these in these little pots. But you actually only want like the bottom 1/3 or so in soil, and they like to be really tight in their pots. So these will be almost perfect for some. This Vixen one though, it's close. Not really room though. I don't know if you can see that. It's not really, like, it pretty much comes to the size of the pot. So I think this one is too big for these pots. Let's see, I'm really hoping this white one fits. Yes, so hopefully you can see how it has room to kind of move around. Ideally you'd have like 2 to 3 centimeters around the outside edge, but 1 will be just fine. They're really not that fussy. I don't think I mentioned, you can actually buy them just like coated in wax and just set them on a tray, and they'll grow like that too. Like, they don't really need the soil that much. It's more just to hold them there. The amaryllis bulb has everything it needs in it for this year's growth right in the bulb already. Okay, so I have Prancer, that Prancer fits, that white fit. This Prancer I can see is a little bit turned. So this is what I was talking about, how some of them were really turned, and I was trying to find some that weren't so turned. But I think Most of the actual stem is still pretty straight. It does take a real turn at the end there, but I think it should straighten out. If it doesn't, I could always pop it out and use it for a different, like put a different one in. Just swap them out if I need to. It's a little bit tight in its pot too, so I might just keep this one for myself. And we'll pick one of these, the smaller one fits the best. So we'll put the smaller one in here. Now, ideally you'd keep all this papery wrapping on, but this one just wants to lose it. So you can see the difference is with these, they've been cut back. These professionally packaged ones have been cut back. All the old dead leaves and all that has been really cut and trimmed and looks really pretty. Mine does not look so pretty. So if I'm gonna use this one as a gift, I'm gonna go and very carefully, there's 2 little shoots just starting here. And very carefully, I'm actually gonna get my snips for this. I'm gonna come in and just cut off and clean up the edge of this brown. It won't look quite the same as the purchased one, but it'll still look a lot nicer than it does. So there, that just looks a little bit cleaner and nicer. So I've done a lot of talking, not a lot of planting. So let's get planting. It's very simple, like I said, to grow these. The biggest thing is just that they get light and water. I mean, you can see they're already growing just like this. So they don't really need the soil for much more than just to hold them in place. It gives some weight below them. Amaryllis get really top heavy. The stems and the blooms are very, very tall, like sometimes 30 to even, I think they get 45 centimeters tall. Sometimes they get really tall, and they're huge blooms, like big. So they get top heavy. So if you're not turning them like every day, you can have your plants topple over. So this is just peat moss. It has a tiny bit of potting soil down in the bottom, but it's mostly just peat moss here. That's what I have on hand. And like I said, the amaryllis have everything they need really to grow right now. So they don't need a lot of nutrition. And I will put just a starter fertilizer in just to kind of encourage some root growth once they're planted, but they don't need a lot more than that. So like I said, we only want about the bottom third to half of the bulb covered with the soil. So that's about where we are there. I could probably pack just a little bit more down the sides. There. So that's another reason I don't like to use like that one. The one in the box comes with that plastic pot, but you can see with just that little bit of soil and so much of this sticking out, if you get a huge stem with a huge bloom and they get top heavy, there's not much holding this in. Whereas you get a heavier, heftier pot like this and set it in, and it can really help to hold it a little bit more steady so you don't have amaryllis dumping all over your dining room table or living room or wherever you're keeping it. So I'm gonna plant a few more up, and then I will show you what I'm gonna do to make these just a little prettier. So I'm kind of packing the soil in and just kind of pulling it up the sides a little bit, just to make a small indentation, because the bulb kind of gets narrower as it goes down to the bottom here. So I want a little space for that, and then the soil's coming just ever so slightly up the sides, and that is plenty for these bulbs here. So you don't want to get any soil or water down the neck or the top part where all the leaves are kind of coming out the very top there. That just encourages rot and bad things to happen. So we don't want that. There. So let's get these looking just a little prettier, because I mean, it's nice to get a plant in a nice pot, but we want a little nicer presentation than that, right? So here, so I have the one, I don't actually know the variety name, but once it blooms, I'll be able to let the recipient know what it is, because I'll know by the bloom color. So I'll just pay attention to who I give it to so that I can let them know. Then I thought it'd be cute to kind of make these, because until they start to bloom, they're kind of meh, blah. So I thought it'd be cute to kind of do some little decorative things with them just to make them a little bit seasonal. But before I do that, some people like to top dress things like amaryllis with sheep moss and things like that. But I find that's just asking for insect trouble. I'm going to just water these in to let the soil settle down in case I need to add any. And then I'm going to top dress it with sand. So I've just picked up some white sand. It's just from the dollar store, Dollar Tree, I think is where I get it. It just comes in bags like this. It's not harmful or anything. So like I said, you don't need to put fertilizer in with these right now. They do have everything they need, but especially since these are going as gifts, I want to give them the best start they can and kind of encourage some root development. So I'm just going to get them some root booster, which is really just a high phosphorus fertilizer and just a liquid fertilizer. So it's going to be available to the roots right away to have them bring it up to get those roots really developing well. You could also put just some like bone meal or something in the soil mix, or a slow release fertilizer that will give them some nutrition once they've started to bloom, and might be using up some of the nutrition that they've stored up from last year and starting to kind of plump up for the next season. So you could put some slow release in there. This one, let's see, those two didn't really settle, so that's good. I had them packed in well enough. We'll see what this one does. So that's good. None of them really settled. And if I look in the bottom, I didn't water them so that they had any amount of water going through to the bottom, just enough to moisten the soil or the potting mix and get them kind of thinking it's time to grow. As you can see, it doesn't take much. So where's that bag of sand I had? So in tight quarters like this, where you don't have a lot of room to spread it, I like to just take a funnel. I just put my finger over the end, put the sand in. That might be enough. And you don't have to do this. I just think it makes it look prettier to just kind of top dress it like that. And you can just kind of put it around. The sand won't hold the moisture like some things, like sheep moss and things will. So that's good. The amaryllis bulb doesn't really want a lot of moisture up higher on it. So if you have one that's sitting a bit lower in the pot like this is, the sand is a really good option that way. And it also helps to deter things from fungus gnats from burrowing in the top layer of soil because they can't get to it with the sand in the way. So this one I made a bit of a mess with, overflowed it a bit. So let's just, some of that, I'm just kind of making a little dent at the top so there is room to kind of put some water in without the sand all coming out. There. Much better. Okay, so like I said, I went to the Dollar Tree and I just went and looked kind of actually at their Christmas ornaments. I was looking to see if they might have some kind of festive plant picks, but they didn't have any. They had these little trees, which I thought were really cute. So I thought it might be kind of cute to just poke a little tree in. They also had these little sleighs, and I don't know what I was thinking because there's just no way that the little sleigh is going to go in this pot. I mean, you could, if you were making this just for yourself to decorate your house, that would be cute like that with just the little sleigh in front, and you could maybe find some little presents or some little candies or something to put in there. That would be really cute. But I think just having the little tree will just give it that extra, you know, just dress it up that little bit until the blooms start to come and the plant starts to leaf out. So I think that's what I'll do. So let's just stick one in each of these. So this one's a little bit taller. I'm going to kind of put the tree off to one side, which I guess it's round. There isn't really a side, but. And these little trees came in a 2-pack for like $1.50, I think. So to me, well, it's a pretty Pretty nice price. So you just want to make sure when you're sticking something like this in that you aren't poking through the bulb. That's it. I think those are really pretty, and I think if I received something like that as a hostess gift, I would be quite happy. Let me show you now how I'm going to plant up my large pot with some more amaryllis to put a large display of amaryllis in it. So let me get these out of the way, and I'll show you how to put multiple amaryllis into one pot. So this pot has the sand in it from the other ones, but it also has this very large hole in the bottom. If anyone's wondering where I got this pot from, I believe I purchased this at Canadian Tire, but I've had it for several years. But anyways, it has this big hole in the bottom, and you could use just a piece of a coffee filter or a newspaper. But I'm going to use, I take like onion bags, things like that, and I just cut little squares out of them. And then I'll just sit over that hole and just keep the soil from coming through that huge hole and plugging that big hole up until the roots have kind of filled in and keep the soil stable. So I just use that to kind of contain the soil while I'm filling the pot and the plants grow. So I'm going to be doing the same thing with this basically as with the rest, but I just need to see how many amaryllis I can fit in here. And I think I have 3 left now. Is that right? Yeah. So I'll be putting the 3 in because I know 3 definitely fit. And then since I have a little bit more space in this pot, it's a little bit big for just 3 amaryllis, I think I'll pop the babies in the center. I'm sure they'll just put up greenery this year, but it'll give them a chance to grow and come back stronger for next year. Now, if you're concerned about things like fungus gnats already being in your potting mix, sometimes when we buy potting mix, there'll be fungus gnats or the eggs of fungus gnats in it, and then that can just wreak havoc in our homes. You could get something like poppers. I buy them in whole boxes. I'll put a link down below for you. Or Nema Knights, they can come, this is the exact same product, just packaged a little bit different. So I'll try and find links for both of those for you so you could check them out. But it's just little nematodes that will hatch in the soil. They don't hurt the plants, they don't hurt you, they don't get out and crawl around your house or anything. And they'll hatch and eat all the fungus gnats, and I think they eat the eggs, the larvae. They don't eat the gnats, they eat the larvae. You could also get mites, predatory mites. Can't remember the name of the one brand that I've used before, or just put some little sticky traps, get some cute little sticky traps and put them in as well. So again, I'll put links to those things and then you can check them out for yourself and see what you think. If you get the little like poppers, little nematodes, and they come in the little kind of mesh bag things, I cut them out of the bag and I sprinkle them on the soil. I find in the bag, they just don't work as well. That's not the recommended use, that's just what I do. Okay, so this is my unknown variety. Pop it over here, and it's wanting to go that way right now. So I'm gonna put it this way so that the stem, hopefully I'll remember to put it in the sun and it'll kind of grow. I'm gonna get them all pointing kind of the same way right now. That way, as I put them in the sun, they'll all kind of be turning and standing up in the same direction. It won't be encouraging. Like if I put this one pointing this way, this one pointing this way, well, wherever I put it, the sun's only coming from one direction. One of them is gonna get worse before it gets better. So if I put them all the same way, and so again, I'm putting them pretty close to the edge of the pot, and I'm just putting the labels for the 2 that I know the variety. I'm just putting the labels down, and I'll put them as down low as I can so that when I dig these out, I'll have the labels with them. And now I'm just gonna fill in with soil because they're not actually covered that 1/3 of the way up. And then I'm just gonna poke these little babies in around them. So like I said, you don't have to put anything on top of the soil. I just think it looks nicer. I think it just makes it look a lot fresher. And like I said, with the sand, it helps to keep down any little nasties from thinking they're gonna make a home in your soil. So I think these little sleighs might actually be cute in here. So what do you think? I might have to get a few more of those trees. I just got 2 packs, I think. Like if I could get one more of these little red sleighs to put over here. And then maybe a couple of these trees. I think that'd be cute. So you just have to imagine. I'll have to go back to the store. Hopefully they don't run out. It's getting to that time of year where all of a sudden these things will just be poof, gone off the shelves. But I think that'd be really cute just to fill it in, like I said, until these really get going. And then they're easy enough, these decorations are easy enough to pull out when the holiday season is over, if these are still blooming, or you know, when you want to set them outside for the summer or whatnot. It's not something that's super permanent that's going to look silly. So I think that's what I'll do is I'll go back to the store, I'll grab another one of these little red sleighs and another pack of these little trees. And I think that would be really cute in here. What do you think? Put it in the comments down below. What would you do? Okay, so I got the amaryllis all potted up and looking gorgeous. I'm really excited to grow these for a little while and then give them as hostess gifts. I think people will love them like that. And now to try another hostess gift, we're gonna go with these paperwhites. So this variety is called Ziva, Z-I-V-A. You can hear my Canadian there. And I have this little stainless steel, I guess, metal container. Anyways, it's just a cute, I just like how it's just kind of shorter but wide or long. And it makes a nice little kind of centerpiece on a table or just something low, you know, to have down in your living room. But it has no drainage and it will leak out the sides a little bit if left to its own devices. So I don't just plant straight into this. What I do is I take a plastic bag and they happen to give me one at the garden center. So I've just pushed it down into the planter here, get my soil, my potting mix, and just put a little layer in there to give some weight. Now I'm not sure how many paperwhites I have in there, how many I have room for, but I'm gonna plant them pretty thick. So now I'm just gonna cut this bag off. So it doesn't look super pretty right now, but we'll kind of tuck it in once we have the plants in here and try and make it just look a little nicer. Another thing you could use is underneath this plastic bag, if you want to just leave it sticking out like this, you could use like some foil wrapping paper or some of that colored kind of film that sometimes florists will wrap around flowers, or you'll get around like poinsettia or something like that. If you have any of that saved or you have a craft store nearby that sells that, then you could put some of that underneath this layer, and that would just kind of disguise this little bit of plastic bag here. I don't have any of that around right now, so I'll make do with this. If I do come across some, I could always lift it out once the roots have started to form and put it in and set this back down. It would probably work quite well that way. So we're gonna get these little paperwhites out. So let's see how many we have. Whoop. That one already is just like so excited to get planted. It just keeps jumping in the soil. So yeah, I thought I could feel another one hiding in there. There we go. So this box also came with a little bag of potting mix. Again, I suspect it's peat moss. And it came with a pot with no drainage holes punched in it. So it does have spots where you could punch them, but it doesn't have them punched out. And sometimes you'll find that, so you may need to put drainage holes in, or maybe they expect this to be the decorative pot that you would set another one in. I'm not sure. says with these paper whites to plant them with the pointed end up, which I think is pretty obvious for most of us. The root side is down here. Pointed end is where the sprout is coming out of several of them already. And so that's where we went up. And it wants the tips just sticking out of the soil. Now it tells me to plant them almost twice as deep as I am, but for a seasonal display, these might just get thrown out at the end anyways, so I'm not worried about having just a little bit less room for the roots. They'll be fine. So I have 1, 2, this is kind of a double, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I think you could almost count this as 2, which should be 8. So let's see how many I can just I just want to kind of crown them as close as I can. And that'll hopefully give the best show. So common wisdom says don't touch your bulbs together when you're planting them because if one rots, then it easily spreads from all of them. These are nice firm bulbs. This is actually another double here. They feel good, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on them very closely. They're going to be right up here. They're not getting tucked into cold storage like potted tulips or daffodils that you're forcing might. So I should have a really good idea if there's any troubles in here right away. So they're all tucked in there really, really tight together. So hopefully you can see that really well. And I'm just going to come back in and just put a little bit more potting soil on top just to bring the level up in the pot and up closer to that tip of the bulb. The nice thing with the paper whites is they don't have that big neck opening that the Amaryllis does, so you're not as likely to get soil down the neck between all the layers as you are with the Amaryllis, so it's a little easier to kind of fill in with soil like I'm doing here. So now we're just going to take this little bag, fold it over. So this is if you were using sheet moss or something, you could easily just tuck this in and put the sheet moss just over the edges a little bit. And that would really hide this little bag here. I'm just going to tuck it down as low as I can. So there, it's fairly tucked away now. Just a little bit of water just to kind of settle the soil. And I'm going to try and just carefully pour this sand around, because again, the paper whites, they don't have that big neck that the Amaryllis has. So I'm not quite as worried about getting sand and soil down the neck of the bulb. So again, if you wanted to be just a little bit festive, you could take one of these little trees or maybe a couple. Very careful and mindful of where the bulbs are. Just steal these so you could have a little look. You know, something like that. Or if you put them back further, if you can work your way around the bulbs. And until they start to sprout and do their thing, you could even do something like, oops, that was backwards. Something like that. Again, maybe a small votive candle or some candies or something in there would look cute. Of course, this is in the way if you are going to, you know, once the plants start to sprout, but it could be something there just to give it that little extra look until then, or you could even just make a whole little kind of forest of trees. And if you wanted something with a little more color, I'm sure you could find something that just wasn't white. But I think this is really pretty. I would love to get this as well. You could get a chalk marker and write like happy holidays, season's greetings, something like that across on the tin, and then it can easily come off if the person wants to reuse it for something else, or draw some little snowmen on it. So lots of different ideas for things that you could do. Tie a ribbon around it, festive ribbon. For now, I'm just going to leave it plain. And when I find something that I want to put in here, I can do that. So hopefully you enjoyed seeing these planters come together. Hopefully it gave you just a little bit of encouragement to find some amaryllis or paperwhites or anything else that's a seasonal bulb that you want to force this time of year. You find those bulbs this time of year, read the package, and if they're in the right time frame for what you need, usually when you buy them at the store, they've already been pre-chilled or anything that they might need, and you can just plant them up and expect the blooms in the time frame it says on the packaging. If you're buying them at the garden center, ask questions, they'll know the answers. So these will need very little care now until they actually start to have lots of more leaf growth and bloom production. Once that happens, I will want to come in and just water them. Now for me in my home, probably once a week, just a light watering. They don't need a lot of watering. They don't want to rot. You can see how high up they want to be. The amaryllis want to be in the pot. They're not looking for a lot of moisture. So just keeping, you know, so they're not completely dried out, will keep them happy and blooming and growing nicely through the holiday season. And even once they're done that, and I take mine, I set them outside once it's no danger of frost or freezing, then they often get forgotten about and they get watered very rarely. They'll dry right out. I'll give them a little bit of water, they dry right out. And most of the time they come back and bloom for me. Like I said, I lost one this summer. That happens, but I'm not too worried about it. So if you are more concerned and you have a variety you really don't want to lose or have die on you, then pay better attention than I do. Otherwise, just enjoy them. So let me know down in the comments down below if this is a project that you enjoy doing yourself for the holidays, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. I think I forgot to tell you, these want a full bright sun location, so you can easily have them anywhere where you're going to get a nice bright spot, like a sunny west or south window is ideal for these. But yeah, just a nice bright sunny spot is perfect. They don't have to be right in the window baking, but they do need a nice bright spot. I'm going to be putting this one right out into my living room on my coffee table. The others I will just put under grow lights for now, and then grab them as I need them for hostess gifts. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.